there is a time and place to be aggressive. There's no doubt. There is a time. I mean, this is in any endeavor. There's a time and place to be aggressive. What I don't like is the idea of the continuously aggressive trader. Are there continuously aggressive traders that have made good money? I think there are. I do. The question isn't, can you be continuously aggressive and make money? Although that might have been a question at one point to me, but I don't think it is. My question is can you continuously be aggressive and keep your money? And I don't think so. Otherwise, I would be continuously aggressive. So I admit that the approach that I take is much more relaxed and conservative than many people might be comfortable with, and so on. But I also know that if I was continuously aggressive, it would be very easily to just in maybe a bad run, because when you're aggressive, you're taking additional risk on. That's what aggressive means. And what is risk? Risk is what you don't know. So not to freak people out about airplanes, but if you get on an airplane and, 15,000 airplanes take off and land every day perfectly, so don't let anything, I'm just using this as an analogy. If you go on an airplane, you are taking on some risk. So what does that really mean? To most people, they'd say, well, the airplane could crash or something could go wrong. That's a good answer. But you don't know if the plane's going to crash and you don't know if something's going to go wrong. And so therefore we call it risk. We're taking on risk, which means that which we don't know. So I don't like the idea, to be honest, of investing in markets and willingly taking on additional risk, which means that which I don't know. My whole premise, my whole approach is to be in markets where I tend to know what the likely outcome is going to be. That's my whole premise, is that don't get into markets unless you have a very good idea of what's likely going to happen. So then the counter premise, which is that you're going to be continuously aggressive with the market, doesn't sit well with me. And then because you're continuously aggressive, you're going to run into a time where you have a longer string, potentially, of incorrect trades that have losses associated with them. And you may hit an emotional breaking point where you make another silly move after that to try to get it all back or whatever, and then that doesn't work. And now you really have, you've kind of blown up. So there is a thing, you've probably read about it, the risk of ruin. So the risk of ruin really is how much risk can you take on before you fall off the side of the mountain, right? You're climbing up with your ropes and so on. There's people that climb up the sides of mountains with absolutely no ropes at all. You've seen these guys. Now this is like genius level stuff that these guys are doing. And yes, there's a tremendous amount of danger, but they're countering that danger with almost an animal instinct level of being able to grapple gravity and the side of a mountain all at the same time and continue climbing up and reaching for bits and pieces of the mountain that they may not have ever seen before and still make their way to the top. It's really a make or break situation. That's an incredible amount of risk to be taking on. Would I want to trade like that? No. And even with a decent degree of insight and knowledge, I would want to use that to eliminate risk, not to increase it. Now, having said all that, I'm completely agreeing that there's a time and place to take on an aggressive position. There just is. There's going to be those moments where you say, this is either it or it isn't, and I'm going to know really quick, right? And so that's a whole nother thing. And occasionally I've done that and have had results, good results from that. But generally speaking, my general thesis is the more knowledge, the less risk you'll have. And that can't be perfectly true because risk is what you don't know. It's never what you really know. I can know that the airplane can crash. That's one level of knowledge, but I can't know if it's going to crash, or the method in which it's going to break that results in a crash. So I can't know that. So risk is what you don't know. So no matter how much knowledge you have, you can't know for sure how much risk you're taking on. All you can know, at least I would say, all you can know is that with better and better knowledge, you've sort of trapped the market into a position, and you know you have a limited amount of risk. And that's what you're trying to do, is limit the risk. And by risk, I'm not just talking about the dollar amount, I'm talking about the risk of being incorrect. Most people, when they think of risk, they always think of whatever the dollar amount is. So, like if I say to you, well, let's get into a trade, and you'll say, well, what's my stop? And it's going to be $300, and that's your risk. But that really isn't the risk. The risk, that money is just money. The risk is that money is going to get taken from you, and it's going to get taken from you if the real risk isn't addressed. And that's the risk of being incorrect about the trade. So the real risk isn't the money directly. It's whether or not you're going to be correct about the trade and can stay in it for the target, and that you're correct about it. So I'm a real big fan of that. Understanding, though, that you do have to take on some additional risk sometimes. There's just a time and place where that just works out.